This is week 3 of me updating my millennial white kitchen and just trying to warm it up and spruce it up a little bit. This is how the upper and lower cabinets turned out. It's just accessible beige by Sherwin-Williams, and I replaced the hardware. But then for the island, I wanted to go with a much darker color. You can see my paint swatches there. I did end up going with cracked pepper from Sherwin-Williams, which you'll see the results of that at the end of the video. For the island, I not only wanted to make it dark, so it was kind of the centerpiece of the room, I wanted to add some texture to it as well. So I got these cool panel boards from Home Depot, and they're not very expensive. I think it cost me $150 for the entire thing. So just FYI on that. And I just went through and measured the length of the island from floor to the top there, which nothing in my house is symmetrical, so it was different measurements from the left side clear to the right, and started securing these panels on one by one. But backing up a little bit, in order to cut these, I did use my miter saw. I don't have a table saw, and I feel like a circular saw, it would work, but it wouldn't be my first choice. And so I measured them, and then I would do one initial cut, and then I'd have to flip them over and do the other side cut, making sure that I was pretty lined up so that they weren't uneven at the top. These panels are 8 feet, so I was able to use each panel twice, and then I had an awkward amount left over. I was trying to think if I could use it for something else, and I just don't think it would work. So felt a little wasteful, but that's why I ended up having to go, I think, with like 15 panels or something like that to fully go all the way around. So once they were all cut out, I used a little bit of the Gorilla Glue for the wood glue, put that on the back, and then I just used my brad nail to secure it in 3 different places, top to bottom. I started this project back in April, and I truly thought that I was going to get it done in 3 weeks. That's why I was like, oh, I'm going to update and do like a video every single week. And it's now July, and I'm finally done with it, and I'm posting it. I ran into some hiccups and some health issues, but it's just comical to me how often I think that projects will not take very long, and they end up taking so much longer than I thought they did. So maybe one day I will learn and I will figure out how long projects are actually going to take me. I secured the panels on each side until I would run into a section that was going to need to have a specialty trim done. So I just wanted to do those all at the same time. And then, lucky for me, I called in reinforcements with my boyfriend, who is a contractor, and he's just much better at this stuff than I am. So he worked on those 3 weird end pieces while I went through and started filling in all of the nail holes with wood filler. I just used a tiny little spackle tool for this and would scrape in that wood filler. Then once it was all done, I went through with a rag, cleaned it off, and then I sanded it a little bit. But I did go through and sand it even more thoroughly afterwards so that it would take the primer and paint, and that's a whole nother situation that we're going to run into here in a minute. I do want to show, though, how he did these like special trim pieces in case you are doing this by yourself. So this one was pretty easy. It went all the way to the edge. So all you had to do was cut out that bottom corner. So he just traced it with a pencil, and then he took it outside, secured it with some clips, and then he used our multi-level oscillating tool with the blade. I love that tool, and I used it a ton when I was doing replacing the flooring in my basement, and so it is really easy to use. I feel like I could have done this myself, but just really grateful that he was willing to help me and do it for me.
A wee bit more.
It fits or it doesn't fit?
No, I'm just trying to get this.
Oh, the outlet.
Yeah, that needs to go like the nookie nook.
Anyways, so those all got secured, and then I went through and sanded the front of all the cabinets, and I sanded the panels as well. I did a lighter sand coat with it, and I regret everything up at this point because it was not taking the paint well at all. I wish I would have sanded it so much more, but I mean, they're not made out of like a nice material. It's like one of those fake woods. So I thought that it was going to take primer better than it did with a little bit of sanding, but I wish I would have gone through even more. Because as I was in the middle of painting this side, I realized that I was going to have to do 2 coats of primer in order to get the in-between of each of those slats done, because I wasn't able to get in the in-between with the sander. So at this point in time in the project, I was highly regretting doing this and wishing that I just hadn't done the panels at all, because the amount of time it took me to go like board by board and prime it was hours and hours. And I also messed up with this because had I not put them completely down to the floor and left a little tiny bit of space, I would have been able to put like some type of protective paper underneath there and then at least sprayed it so that it didn't take so long. But since it went all the way to the floor and all the way to the top of the island, I wasn't able to do that, and so I had to hand paint this. Once I finally got done through the primer coats of the island, I did start on the cabinet doors downstairs on my nifty little cardboard boxes that my mirror was shipped in. So those came in clutch through this entire process, but I'm also really glad for this project to almost be done so that I can get them out of my basement. And then it was finally time to start doing the paint on the island. And at this point in time, I was so sick of sitting on my floor. At some point in time, I started sitting on a blanket because my tailbone and my butt bones were just dead by the time we had gotten through this. I would say in total, with 2 coats of primer and 2 coats of paint, I probably sat on this floor and painted for 20 to 25 hours. So if you're going to do this project, I don't regret doing the panels now that it's done. I did very much in the middle, but I would definitely recommend leaving yourself a little tiny bit of space so that you can put something underneath it and end up spraying it, because it wouldn't have been as big of a deal to do coats of paint had I not had to hand paint them. For the actual cabinet fronts, you want a foam brush, and so I would use that small foam brush when I was just doing the outsides, but in order to get into the little insides, the nooks and crannies, and not paint the floor or the top of the island, I used a little tiny art brush, and then I used a paintbrush to go in between the slats, and that is what I found worked the best. This is the point of every project where it's kind of scary because it's way too late to turn back now, but it looks awful in the middle of it and you're thinking, what have I done? I completely screwed my house up. I should have just left it how it is. But I can reassure you, every single time I've thought that in a project, by the time I got done, I actually loved it, and I feel like it really upgraded my house, and whatever project I've done, it's just made it look so much better. So after 4 coats of paint, many hours on my floor, this is the final product. I love how it turned out. I love the brass hardware up against the dark brown island. I'm really glad I didn't do black because I feel like the dark brown is perfect color. And I also love the slats. Halfway through, I'm like, I should have just left it as it was. It would have been so much easier, which yes, it would have been, but I love the dimension that it adds to my house. Now, my next thing on my list is I need to get new bar stools because obviously these don't work and they're really old anyways. So looking for that, but thanks for watching. I'll be doing some instructional videos, so watch for those.